Hello everyone, I'm Jagdish Chopde and welcome you all in class 2 of React training series. Now in last class we saw the introduction of React and component, and we also created our demo application by using Vite tool, and we also cleared all the boilerplate code. Now in this class we will see creating a new component. Now in last class only we saw this app component being our first component to render. And here we clear all that boilerplate code and just added this header, this h1, and a paragraph, which we can see here in the output. Now we also saw main.jsx is the starting JSX file which get executes once our application starts. And here only we saw that app component is mentioned as our first component to get started with. Now let's explore this main.jsx file in a bit. So here we can see there is only one function getting called in this file, which is create root function. Now this function is getting imported from React DOM / client library. And all this internal code is just a parameter which is getting passed to the create root function. Now if we check the parameter, so here it's just getting the reference of a document element. That means this whole HTML document dot get element by id root. That means it is getting a reference of a element with id root from our document, and inside that it is just rendering this app component in a strict mode. Now which element with this root id it is capturing? It is capturing it from the index.html file. Now here, from this whole project structure, you can see there is only one HTML file available in this project, that is index.html. This is because this is the only file which gets delivered in the browser as a part of bootstrapping this application or getting started this application. And here in this file you can see in the body there is a div tag with the id root, and the only script tag which is loading main.jsx file. That means main.jsx file gets executed right after including this div in the DOM. Now here in this main.jsx file, we are getting the reference of this only div with the id root, and there inside that we are injecting this app component. And this is how our app component becomes the first component to render. And there is no another HTML file available in this project or gets generated. Rest all the functionality, navigation, and everything happens internally inside this div by using JavaScript. And this is the reason these kind of applications are called as a single page application, because only one page gets rendered here and rest everything happens internally by using JavaScript. That is why React is called as a JavaScript library, because all the execution happens by using JavaScript only. Now that was about understanding the project structure in more detail. Now let's see creating a new component. Now here we have this default first component, which is app component. Now talking about components are nothing but the JavaScript function, which at the initial will have some code to execute, a JavaScript code, of course. And after that, it will just return some HTML looking like code, which is a JSX. Next, let's progress towards our demo application, which is Udemy. Now, here as the title, I will change it to Udemy. Save this, and here as a title, I got Udemy. And next, I want everything here center aligned. So, for that, I will go into my global index.css file, and here we are already overriding the style of body tag, and there, along with this font family and background color, I will add text align to center. Save this, and everything in this body will get center aligned. Next, let's go into app.jsx file, and here, for displaying this header, which is our app name, I want to create a separate component. Going forward, which will have a rest of the header elements like navigations, user profile menus, etc. So for that, here in the source folder, I will create a new file, and I will name this as header.jsx. And as I told you, that React components are nothing but just the JavaScript functions, which will have some code, and ultimately it will return some JSX. Following the same pattern, here I will create one function. Let's call this as same as the file name, like header. And as of now, I do not have any parameter. And inside this, I want to return my JSX, which is in this case will be my h1 tag. So I will cut this h1 tag here, and I'll just paste it here. And after that, I will just export it just like we are doing here for this app component. Export default app. In the similar way, I will export this export default header, and we are ready with our header component. Now after this, I want to use this here in place of this h1, which we just moved into our new component. Now here, in order to use it, first of all, I need to import this component. For that, here at the top, I will import header from the path, which is dot. That means same directory. In the same directory, I have this header.jsx. Now here, mentioning .jsx file extension is completely optional. After that, we will use this header just like any other HTML tag. So here, I'll just add this header like this. And once we save this, we will see on the output there is no changes. But now, for a second, suppose I'm removing this header, saving this, then you will not going to see the header. And once we are adding our header back and then saving the file, we are seeing the code, the header is back again. Now here, following the semantic HTML, instead of directly adding this h1, what I will do, I will include this in the HTML header tag. And inside this, I will have this h1. So going forward, along with the app name, suppose we want to include other header elements like navigation menu, etc. So those we can include in this header tag. Now, React does not enforce us to follow any strict file naming conventions, but following the community recommended conventions help us to maintain our code, especially when our code base gets larger. Now, here, if we see any another standard HTML slash JSX looking tags are in smaller case, and out of this, the user defined components generally starts with the title case, just like this app component. So it gets easier to identify the user defined components versus the inbuilt HTML components or HTML tags. So that is why here we are keeping the component file name in a title case, and the same name we are using here for this function, for this component function, and the same we are exporting from this file. Another thing, as we created this header component, just like in the same hierarchy as this app component is, and there is no problem at all. I like my components to be organized in a folders. For the same, I will create a separate folder here, and I will call this as component. And inside this components folder, I will create a separate folder for my header component, and I will call this as header. And inside this header folder, I will move my header.jsx file. And it is asking, are you sure you want to move header.jsx into header folder? I will confirm this. And accordingly, we also need to update the import statement, which VS Code already updated for us. And after this, once we save, everything will work as it is. And here it is giving one error in the console that it is unable to find this header.jsx in the source folder. Now that problem we actually already solved here, which will get reflected here in the console once we refresh the page. With this, there are no errors in the console currently, and we got our all the components organized. Now going forward, we will add all our user defined components into components folder. Now that's all for this class. In next class, we will see adding CSS styling in our newly created component. Thank you all.